So good morning, everyone. I think you can all see me, and I'm looking through a list of some wonderful folks from all around the state that I know and who I miss dearly being in the presence of. But I do want to welcome you this morning to our weekly COVID-19 webinar. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Adam Pearl, President and CEO. The touched up picture is, I guess, like what I'm supposed to look like, and the video screen is what I actually look like. So we're glad that you're all here with us this morning. Just a little bit of housekeeping, and then I just have a few comments, and we'll get right into the thick of things. For those of you that are participating, you should see some options on the bottom of your screen, a Q&A option and a raise your hand option. The Q&A option allows you to type in a question for anyone that's any of the talking heads this morning. And it also allows you to actually upvote other people's questions. So if you see somebody else ask a question and you just want to say, yep, well, I'd love to hear that answer, you can vote on those as well too. You can also raise your hand, and Jim Atkinson on the ArtPride team is monitoring that, and we'll do our best to get to your questions and allow you to speak and to connect in with the different people talking this morning. So, you know, I just wanted to start this morning by saying that, of course, ArtPride New Jersey has been a leader in all types of crisis for more than 35 years. And certainly that is the same today as we face more than likely the biggest challenge in our professional careers and perhaps in our personal lives too, probably that and hopefully that as well. And I understand that most of the folks on this call are working for or leading organizations that are dealing with severe crisis, as well as individual artists and arts industry professionals. And I just want to say that we're all in this obviously together, and that at ArtPride, we're really focusing on what we can do within our ability, our capacity to help you in these times. I think for those of you that have seen ArtPride, been connected with ArtPride for some time now, you can see that we're an organization that thrives in crisis. We would certainly obviously prefer a political or legislative crisis at this point to the global crisis we're dealing with. But, you know, we work well in this situation, and that's because we work well together with you. And in the past month, I think most of you that are on this call have seen that ArtPride as an organization, as an entity, has really risen to the moment. And we're going to continue working as hard as we have been working, continuing to look for every opportunity to collaborate wherever and whenever possible. We're here working for you. You know, today we're going to showcase a little bit of what we've been working on to make sure that everybody sees it all. And we're also going to have plenty of time here to hear. We want to hear from you. We want to hear what we can do. So before we move on, I do want to thank a few folks that's certainly worthy of gratitude in this time. You know, I'll start with Anne-Marie Miller, who you're going to be hearing from in a minute, who's been advocating with amazing skill and impact from her home, and I think we've all learned so much from her, both here in these webinars and individually over the last few weeks. I want to thank Jim Atkinson, who's behind the scenes, literally here. He's got his video off, and he's pulling the strings and making sure that everything is working and functioning and moving forward. He's done a great job of that, as well as the entire ArtPride staff, all of which I think may be on the call right now, who pulled up roots, planted at home, barely batted an eye. Was never a question of if we can do this, and always a matter of how we can help. I also want to thank the board. We have a number of the board members, Sharon Harrington, our chair, and the board for their support throughout all of this, and all of you, our members, our friends, our constituents. We are an arts service organization. We are a trade association. The definition of those things mean we're only strong as our members. So with that, I will pass it along to Anne-Marie. So for those of you that don't know, our incredible Director of Advocacy and Public Policy, you are, I know she hates praise, but that's why we give it to her more. You know, if you haven't had a chance to thank Anne-Marie, please do. But Anne-Marie, I'll throw it to you. I know we're going to talk a little bit about policy, and then we're going to hear from one of the state's great arts advocates, Senator Kean. So Anne-Marie, you're up.
Okay, thanks, Adam. I just wanted to point out to everyone that the Board of Trustees of ArtPride at their April 7th board meeting adopted these COVID-19 related policy recommendations, which I shared with Senator Kean yesterday, just so he was aware of the types of issues that we're trying to be on top of. Everything from making sure we're included in relief efforts in terms of philanthropic relief efforts, to also the legislation that really makes a difference for our future. Everything from the 830-101 that was passed and signed into law in January, but still doesn't contain the minimum appropriations that the law asks for. And then in light of the current budget situation, going on to federal issues that deal with the National Endowment for the Arts, they received $75 million from the CARES Act. New Jersey will get $494,000 out of that, which is we're not sure how that formula was actually computed, because you know, Texas is getting like $700,000. The state disparity is kind of unusual. We don't know how what the computations were for coming up with that number. Then going on to looking, you know, making sure that whatever relief efforts and funding is available is equitably distributed, considering our diverse field and the needs on several levels of support. And then as part of the CARES Act, there's now a very small $300 charitable deduction available for non-itemizers, but we're also supporting the New Jersey charitable deduction, which I'm sure the Senator will talk about a little bit more. You know, reduction of state payroll tax, supporting inclusion in the SBA loan criteria and EDA loan criteria, pandemic unemployment benefits for workers ineligible for state unemployment benefits. Very, very important, because so much of our creative workforce are independent contractors. Supporting the continued conversion of government contracts and private foundation grants to operating support, so that you know, we can sustain our organizations during this crisis from you know, operating support grants rather than project related support grants. And then supporting A 3844, which I know was considered by the Assembly, but will be coming forward, I believe, in terms of allowing business interruption insurance policies to consider the COVID emergency declaration within that as an option, which is certainly not part of business interruption insurance policies now, and supporting significant inclusion in the arts and any additional tourism and business promotional efforts, because we're all related. As we know, we all get our funding from the same source, which is also in considerable jeopardy right now. So there is a link on our COVID page. You see it up there for the these policy recommendations, and I invite you to look at them closely, and you'll be seeing action alerts with relationships to the various legislation here. Right now, what I want to do is introduce you to Senator Kean. Many of you know him already, as he's been a senator since 2003, a Republican leader since 2008. He serves on committees for higher education, legislative oversight, and on the Senate Committee for New Jersey Transit. And a lot of you also know him as the ex officio Senate member of the New Jersey State Council on the Arts, and we want to thank him today for joining us. And okay, Senator Kean, on to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Anne-Marie. It's wonderful to be with you all again, and to David and to you know, everybody on this, to everybody on this phone call, everybody in this presentation. Thank you for everything that you have done to make New Jersey a stronger place. Where you have helped out neighborhoods, have helped out families, the inspiration you provide to everybody, whether it's Adam or whether it's Anne Marie or with everybody else on this phone call, you've inspired generations of people to stay in the state, to stay in their neighborhoods, and I want to thank you all for that. Serving in the state Senate during these times has been an incredible privilege, and to be the ex officio member of the Council on the Arts is one of my great privileges of serving in office. And so I know what you do and how you make an important impact. During these uncertain times, I think it's very important that the legislature do everything we can to make sure that you have predictability within your daily lives, to make sure that there is, not only that people are safe and that we're protecting people at home, but also that there's a pathway forward where people know that we are going to regrow the economy. We are going to rebuild the neighborhoods. We are going to continue to work together as a New Jersey family to make sure that we are stronger than we ever have been before. And the arts community and those professionals around it are an integral part of that. That's for the reason why Troy Singleton and I have, for example, for a number of years, sponsored a piece of legislation that would make charitable deductions part of, from your income tax. When the income tax was put forth back in the 1970s, it was supposed to be at 2% with no deductions. And now, as many people on this phone call know, it's now at up to 10% and no deductions. And so what we're trying to work on a bipartisan basis to get a charitable deduction for giving, just like you have on your federal taxes. And we think that would be a tremendous boon, not only lower the income tax burden for New Jersey families, but it make sure that arts organizations, health organizations, environmental organizations, all are able to do their job of helping neighbor help neighbor. We've changed the bill a little bit. We introduced a new version just a couple days ago, where Troy Singleton and I together, that would work on this state of emergency, this pandemic, so that people would be able to have not only people could help now and get the tax deduction next year, so the cash would be available right now for the charities. But the second component is because one of the concerns that the governor has expressed over the last year is the potential impact on the overall budget. So he had that concern last year. He continues to have that concern. So to make sure that there's predictability within the budgeting process, Troy and I have agreed that we would reduce the overall deduction to be up to $10,000 of giving for an individual, up to $20,000 for a couple. That would still make sure that you would have, for every $1 the state quote unquote loses, that would be $30 of benefit to the organizations. And that would be a huge, I think, turbocharge and help for organizations on this call and throughout the state. The budget process, as people on this phone call know, has been pushed back by about 3 months, which means that everything that was used to be done in May and June is now going to be done in August and September. So those will be, when we'll probably have we certainly have a continuing resolution going from June 30th to the end of September. But the budget process itself will be probably with the delayed income tax filing until July 15th. The budget will be struck at the tail end of September. Anne Marie, I'm happy to answer any questions that we may have. And I want to thank you and Adam for your leadership in this regard.
So I have questions. And we're going to keep an eye on Q&A here in Zoom. But thank you, Senator. The last part that you mentioned with the fiscal year change means that traditionally arts groups would see State Arts Council funding in whatever shape or form it ends up being in August or September. And then the delay now would mean that, the earliest they might be able to see anything would be November or December. Considering the fact that there's already, a need that's evidenced in the short term, it's going to get worse in the longer term. So if any suggestions you might have, we're looking to see how we can articulate that need at the right time, because of course right now it's very difficult. You know, we're not first responders, we're kind of like second responders. Any ideas you have on that would be really helpful.
I would say, as with everything, communication is key. The legislature is still meeting. We had a session remotely just this past Monday, and we've not had any real committees remotely, but we're now going to start to have committees. So the process will start remotely, where citizens will have an opportunity to advocate before the legislature, and legislature will meet remotely, whether it's in the Assembly or the State Senate. So I would make sure that the phone calls, emails into the legislator's office to express to your local legislator the importance of this need. That's why something like being able to put through that tax reduction only during the emergency crisis, just like we're doing so many other of these efforts throughout this pandemic period of time, we're going to see what was necessary, what was not necessary, but important to say, we can show that a tax reduction and a childhood deduction in that regard would be helpful and a positive impact. So we can say that it should stand not only for the immediacy of the COVID period, but also more broadly. So I would say emailing and phone calling your local legislators is a start. Having other individuals who are involved in your organizations mention the incredible impact. I mean, personal stories will always, be impactful at the end of the day. And I think that the more personal stories you can tell about, or have somebody else tell about the impact of your organization on the local community, as we're working on the budget process throughout the end of September, I would do both.
Great, thank you. You just answered the next question, which was going to be, how do we be our best advocates? Is there any particular legislation that we should be looking at that's, currently under consideration besides, charitable deduction?
I think the business interrupted insurance one that you talked about earlier, you've got the number here is A3844. We all thought in the state Senate that was going to pass in the Assembly, and a lot of people put stops on it for a couple of concerns regarding insurance loss issues. So I think that's going to be fixed in the Assembly and presented there before it comes over to the state Senate, since they've already started to work on that process. So I think that piece of legislation over there will be, will initiate and stay over there.
Another issue that's kind of surfaced just over the past couple days is the ban on construction that for only essential services, yet several of the nonprofits have had to abide by that. Is there anything that you suggest we do in terms of, keeping an eye on how we can ask for any types of exemptions?
Well, I think I know the governor's working on this on a day-by-day basis. I mean, I'm hearing a lot from my constituents regarding the closing of the parks, for example, and how people are now walking on roadways more, and that impacts not only the individuals who are walking, but those who are driving as well. And so I know that the governor's doing this on a day-by-day basis. One of the things that my caucus and I are trying to work with him on is give us an exit strategy. What is the pathway to help grow the economy? What are the markers, whether either by health related or economic related, that he will view as important? I mean, it's clear that he's working in concert with Governor Cuomo, Governor of Pennsylvania, Governor of Delaware, Governor of Massachusetts, and Connecticut in a regional basis. But there's also some very unique areas in New Jersey, whether it's on the construction area, the seasonal entities, the arts, very specifically some of the small theaters have got some real concerns about being able to make sure that those entities continue to have some of their cash flow. So I think that constant keeping in contact with people within the administration to make sure that they know the importance of the construction, especially during these times.
There's been some interest because arts groups are, many of them are closely partnering with economic development and community development. And we know that there will be stimulus funding on a county level and in some urban areas and more populated areas, with an emphasis on, COVID related um, um, projects. However, you know, do you have any ideas on how we can encourage those partnerships so that the arts groups that are now considering how to get back into business again in the future, and you know, they're going to have a whole new way of doing business, can become stronger partners with economic development and community development groups? I mean, are there places that they should go to, people they should contact to begin those relationships?
Sure. Or Anne Marie, you and David, excuse me, you and Adam have both been really aggressive in tie-barring how the economic growth and the arts community go hand in hand. I mean, there are so many downtowns that wouldn't be what they are without the arts groups that were there making them early investments and their participation. So I would continue those conversations. I mean, the COVID impact has impacted every single one of the 21 counties. It's impacted obviously every community. There's not a downtown that hasn't been functionally cleared out, you know, from a lot of different of the daily operations by the current pandemic. So I would argue that the economic growth opportunities and the arts development opportunities are, you know, impact arts groups throughout the state of New Jersey, especially as we're starting to understand that this is, and people are sheltering in place in every community, that we need to ensure that the every single zip code has a opportunity for a positive impact, both at the federal level, where they need to ensure that the as you were talking about earlier,
There you go. No, sorry.
Sorry about this. Somebody tried to pop through. The not only at the current level, where you're saying, you know, what when you say what the difference between Texas and New Jersey in one funding formula, but there are many other funding formulas. We need to make sure that on the federal level, we get the right funding formulas done the right way with transparency that impacts every single one of the counties and as many municipalities as possible, but also on the state level to make sure there's a great deal of transparency on the funding mechanisms.
And then one last question I have before we turn it over and see if there's anybody else out there that has questions. It says,
there is one, Anne-Marie, when you're done.
We do?
Yeah, there's one. When you're done, there's one.
Okay, great, thank you. So a couple years ago, you and I talked about workforce development and arts jobs. And recently we've been talking with colleagues across the country that are doing arts advocacy and have, you know, the WPA programs and the CETA programs have come up as examples. And, you know, no offense here, but I'm not sure our federal government's inventive enough to be thinking along those lines. My first job was as a CETA program during the Nixon administration. Any ideas on how, on a statewide level, maybe that kind of workforce development that would help grow our field? I think we're going to lose people because of furloughs and looking for other types of employment. Any way we can grow our field through some programs like that? It's just a thought.
Well, I think Governor Murphy has been aggressive in saying that innovation should be one side of it. And I think that innovation from an economic development approach by definition includes the arts in every way, because I think that's a component part of opportunity, economic growth, and inspiration that will grow not only the regional downtowns, but the cities as well. So I think that working with, I think it's Tim at the EDA, Tim Sullivan and others to better understand and define the arts program, I think that's the right organization to go in. And I think that both Governor Murphy as well as the legislature, we've been talking about this issue in the past, and Marie, as you have mentioned, but I think we can do more in this regard. And I would be happy to help support and advocate for any program like that has true and sustained value for our community.
Great, thank you. Adam, you got questions?
Yes, I have a question from, so this question comes from John McEwen, who is the Executive Director of the New Jersey Theater Alliance. John is asking, several of my theaters are in the middle of capital projects, but since construction has been ordered to halt their work it is really putting them at risk in the long term. Any updates or suggestions regarding that? And he says, thank you.
Thank you, John. It's good to be with you again. That's one of my grave concerns is the stopping of the construction in how currently you define non-essential. I think it's, people want to see some of the progress going on these theaters, and I hope that the governor is monitoring the definition of what essential construction is and what essential construction is not more quickly, because I think there are ways you can show, as you've seen on some of the open space areas where there's some outside construction going on real time. I think that hopefully the governor will start to see that in the near future.
Thank you, Senator. So we have another question from Andy Chang of 90 Chen Dan's company. And Andy is asking a question about, well, he's saying that he can see health insurance premiums rising once people, it's jumping around on me, once people begin to work together, performing artists, for example, rehearsing together, are in close contact with small groups of people. And he's concerned that all kinds of insurance will be impacted, and just curious your thoughts if there's been any discussion or any forethought to how that might look in the future.
Well, we want to do everything we can to lower the overall cost of health insurance, and I think we need to do everything we can on state level, the federal level, and work with the insurers and private industry, doctors, wherever we can. Some people are talking about right now, it seems that almost every other area of the insurance market, car insurance and others are offering, are offering discounts right now, but the health insurance is not at this juncture. And I think some of the people are seeing some of the large insurance companies posting the largest gains that they've had from a revenues perspective, because there aren't, I guess, paying out some of the more the selective choices, selective surgeries, not the essential ones. And I think people need to figure out together on a bipartisan basis ways to make sure that the premiums are kept as low as humanly possible.
So, Anne-Marie, the other question we have here, I'm gonna hold off until I think it's for the general population, for the participants. There's a question about if folks on the phone, if anyone was successful in receiving SBA emergency grants or was successful in getting a PPP grant in. So I think we'll find a way after we ask the questions of the senator to maybe poll the group here.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Senator Kean. Please, stick around. We have a few other things we want to share what ArtPride's working on. Actually, we've been working very closely with the State Arts Council. They did a survey a few weeks ago trying to estimate the need within the community. And so we worked up an infographic. According to Americans for the Arts poll, 92% of organizations in New Jersey had to cancel events. The poll that the State Arts Council took is the bar graph on the top right there, which actually totals $30 million and that's only over a 90-day period. They polled individual artists and arts professionals and arts organizations. There's some quotes from folks, talking about, how the impact of this is going to be transformational on individual artists who depend on gig working and contracts, how that's affecting them, through unemployment insurance, and how that's changed but has not yet become as available as it needs to be. So we'll be sharing this information going forward.
If I may add on, I know that the Department of Labor has recently updated its website. There's a huge, 2 or 3 week backlog up until even yesterday. And I know in my district office, we have hundreds of unemployment insurance claims that people are concerned by that we are working on. So we're trying to, I know the Department of Labor is trying to open up more additional lines, add more resources, add new websites. So check that every day. I am concerned right now that there's a disparity that's being treated between the two types, the geek employee and the permanent employee, at the administrative level in the Department of Labor. So please be assured that I do think I believe there's a discrepancy in how they treat the workers, and we need to work on a bipartisan basis to make sure that both types of workers with both types of paychecks are impacted equally and treated equally.
Thank you. This is us, unmasked. These are staff members at ArtPride. I think our hair is longer at this point than it's been since these photographs were taken. This is the coronavirus page with all the resources. You see the arrow, that's actually where you'll find the recorded tapings of the previous webinars, also backup materials. There's a lot of information for individual artists and for arts organizations as well. This is what Jersey Arts is working on in terms of virtual arts experiences. You can go to jerseyartsevents.com. It's amazing what our staff is able to do in a relatively short period of time in terms of a calendar of virtual events, and it's actually beautifully presented. So please continue to check that, because that's one way also of supporting your local arts organizations. Also, there's Culture Vultures, the podcast, and written pieces, most recently on Bucky Pizzarelli's death, and also an interview with Sam Pott from Nimbus Dance. And they will
Sam smiling there.
They will continue. These will continue, and we're, throughout. This is not stopping. Most recently, actually, I think it was yesterday, New Jersey Municipalities Magazine came out, and an article is featured on the Mayor's Committee on Arts and Culture that is a co-venture with the State Arts Council and ArtPride. So we're working on that together, and I've already gotten emails as a result of the article from mayors and council members around the state that are interested in joining. So we'll continue that, and actually it might work better virtually now than trying to get a whole bunch of mayors in a room. So we'll see how this all folds out. And then there's a JAM, Jersey Arts Marketers meeting coming up soon on May 20th. That is about recovery messaging and dealing with crisis management with the speakers that are listed. So put that on your calendar, and you'll hear more information from us on that. And that's where you can contact us. So
Anne-Marie, oh, sorry, I'm gonna
go for it.
Yep. So we actually had another question come in here. I think, since you're with us, if you wouldn't mind answering one more question. This comes from Steve Steiner at Surflight Theater in Beach Haven on Long Beach Island. He says, as we come out of the crisis, obviously timetable is really important. Our theater makes 40% of its revenue in July and August. Are there any thoughts with regard to percentage of occupancy?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Adam. I certainly understand. I mean, I think when people are going to start to look at restaurants first and start to see how the occupancy and the spacing starts to happen in that first, as we're starting to work on toward theaters and seeing what the occupancy is. I think we all agree that we want to have, the summer. I mean, hopefully we're looking at, late May to come out of this thing on a real basis. I don't know what the, I think what we are going to do together, whether it's state level, whether it's the human interaction level and the comfort level, on whether it's in the theaters, whether it's in planes, much less restaurants and everything else. I think we're going to start to play that by ear. I don't know what the governor's going to mandate going forward, but the occupancy issue is something I know that I've got some concerns, just like that you do, regarding the impact this is going to have on many of our theaters in the short term. If you email me at Sen Kean, anybody on this phone call, SEN, so Senator, KEAN @njleg.org. if you have some very specific issues that relate to whether it's the NJEDA, whether it's the unemployment issues, or whether it's new ideas, because it's ArtPride is an extraordinary organization to work with, and you all really do extraordinary work, having an impact. Right, you are certainly doing everything you can in an exponential way by working as a team, and I'm happy to work with you and learn from you now and going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. We appreciate it. And for what it's worth, the Senator's team are great. They do actually respond to that email and fairly quickly. Jim, I see you. We see Jim Atkinson has joined the video. I know that a couple of folks had questions for the group about if anyone had success in either getting SBA emergency fund loan or PPP. The Zoom webinar, for what it's worth, is a little bit new to us. So creating a poll on the fly is not something we're quite capable of doing right away, but I think it's going to be tops on our list to try to figure out for next time. But actually, if anybody has had success in either of those or has other, pertinent information, please raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, and Jim will call on you, because I think other folks are interested. I will say that for us, for ArtPride, we did not get our PPP loan in time. So we're hopeful that that fund will be, filled back up again and go back in. And I know many folks are in that same category. So I see participants raising their hand. Jim, I'll throw it to you.
Hey, thanks, Adam. Mike Stotts, would you like to share any experiences you've had?
Sure. Yes, it took a while, but we finally did receive a verbal affirmation that we were to receive a PPP loan. We received that 2 nights ago, and we are waiting on the loan documents right now.
Thank you. Pam Brandt, would you like to share your experience with PPP?
Yes, I found out same as the other caller for the loan documents.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a moment. Could you try again?
Yes, we found out yesterday we were approved for the PPP loan, and I'm just waiting for the loan documents.
Great, thank you. And Vincent Martini. Is there anything you would like to share with us? Marjorie Nathanson. Okay, Allison Lorena.
Hi, everyone. Yes, we are in the same boat at MPAC. We did get the approval for the PPP loan, and we are awaiting the loan documents as well. We're hoping to be funded by next week.
That's great news. Howard.
Same situation for State Theater New Jersey. We received verbal confirmation, but we're also waiting for the loan documents.
I think that seems to be a pretty common theme. Anyone else want to contribute? Hey, thank you.
Okay, so I know we're coming up to 10:45, and we're doing our best to try and keep these to 45 minutes. Everybody's time is certainly remains very valuable. How about Mike Stotts just wrote, I don't know if everybody sees this on the question and answer, if only I can see that, our loan documents just arrived, like with just capitalized. So we'll just call that karma, Mike. That's the collective karma here, getting the documents to you right now. So without seeing any other questions or answers, I just want to thank everybody again for participating, for joining us today. The response has been fantastic. Please use the exit survey and certainly keep your eyes open for everything coming from ArtPride, from notices from Discover Jersey Arts about culture vultures to action alerts to our webinar for next week. And thank you to all for all you're doing. And we'll talk to you and we'll see you soon. Take care.